going to take you out for a 30-minute float on the eye that some of you know and some of you don't. We'll tell you about 5 minutes about where we are and who we are, and then we're going to immediately switch to the two guests that we have. So maybe you can introduce yourselves very shortly.
Sure. I'm Ian Schulte. I work for a company called Latitude Research, and we help media and technology companies innovate using new web technologies. Can you hear anything?
Yeah, maybe we can put it up. Just a second. Oh, the technology. Can you try again?
Yeah, sure. Well, feedback anyway.
Test.
Test.
Yeah, here we say see the supple sup.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast. All right. Is this working? Can people hear?
It is working, but
okay.
It's working for the recording too.
Well, in that case, I'll speak up then. And sorry for the audio guy in the back if I'm yelling in your ear. I'm Ian Schulte. I'm the Director of Technology and Business Development for a firm called Latitude Research. Very shortly, we work with a lot of media and technology clients to help them create new products, new content, and new marketing forms and formats that take advantage of new web technologies and devices.
Thank you. Marcus?
Does that go? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, hi, I'm Marcus Kirsch. I work for Leopold London, which is an advertising agency. I'm working in a small team called Hypermedia there, and we're working on integrated campaigns and digital projects. And I'm also part of Council, which is the national network of specialist thinkers and policymakers, which is a lot about the Internet of Things. Yeah, that's probably sums it up.
Thank you, guys. I'm Gijs Garcia-Bogaerts. I'm a senior strategist at Evident. We're an online agency, so we're sort of in the same line of business. And I would like to invite you in a very special ecosystem, because we just left the city and we're floating into nature, a special type of nature that's connected with ports all over the world. There's a direct connection between the Shanghai port, Singapore port, Seattle port, and all the different world ports through these guys that float between them and leave their water here, their salty water here. And that makes this a very special area, a very special ecosystem that brought all kinds of life to Amsterdam, like these great Chinese crabs and great tasting immigrants, the American red lobster. And they're just underneath us here. So, and recently they also brought millions of these little jellyfish. There's a plague going on. It's called a plague, but it's no problem because the fish here really love these little jellyfish. So the water brings different kinds of species to the city. City of Amsterdam, that's a floating city. Lots of houses are built on water, and they used something to keep them afloat, wooden poles to stand on. So we have a lot of water here, and water is one of the themes that is very important in this picnic. The lack of water or too much water, especially in the urban areas. I'd like to make a switch to who we are, who I am. I work for a company called Evident, and we're an online company. And recently we had some experience in accessing or giving access to nature to a big public. I don't know if any of you has seen this website. I see somebody nodding there. And it was a website following a Fox's family in an underground city, a Fox's city. And we placed webcams there, and we could follow what happened. And the whole of the country could experience what happened. We got 2.2 million visitors in 8 weeks. So we brought nature into people's homes, outside in. And they witnessed the birth of a fox. There's a great sound with this one, but you don't want to hear it through that speaker, because then your ears will explode. But we experienced the live birth of the foxes live on the webcam on the 1st of April. And that was a very special moment for us, because we could bring nature on a very, very clear level into people's homes. And people enjoyed it a lot until late hours. Then we said, okay, we brought nature into people's homes, But how will we get them out of the home again? Because the National Forest Council, who asked us to do this, has a purpose to bring people out and share the nature that's here in this country. We don't exactly have nature in this country, but we have parks that look like it and behave like it. So we invented the iPhone app. It's called Naar Buiten. It says, okay, let's take you out. And it uses your position and your wish to maximum travel time to give you access to all nature that's surrounding you. And most of the time, that's closer than you think. So we did a very simple app, giving you the route and sharing information within that. And it was downloaded in the first 3 weeks 25,000 times. So there's a market for that, bringing people outside. But we don't bring people outside only. We're busy with the city also, with urban development. This was 5 years ago. We helped a project developer to come up with a concept, with a social concept to create your own neighborhood. This is a live rendering of all the wishes that people who would like to live in a new neighborhood brought in. People could pick their own space where they would like to live and place it on a map and then discuss it with each other because they were all positioned personally and they were discussed in offline sessions like, okay, I'm looking into your kitchen, can you maybe twist the corner of your house to another area? So this was 5 years ago, and now on Picnic there's a lot of talk about creating your own neighborhood and having more influence in the area where you live. I walked in on Picnic the first day and I saw these guys in the marketplace that do this in a physical way. Just do this with the homes. I don't know if you saw them, but they needed this. So we're going to talk about it, of course, using the platform to do nice things. But we're here for these two guys, Marcus Kirsch, Ian Schulte. You just introduced yourselves, and you were here, I think, on Wednesday doing a workshop, and the theme was about the Internet of Things, but also about bringing your ideas to the market. How do you make your business plan? How do you adapt it to your audience? And that's one of the things, adaptation to the audience is one of the things that I would like to maybe discuss with you on board the ship. This is one of the things I've found in your profile, Cityness and the Internet of Things. And I would like to add to the Internet of Things, things I need or we need, because there's a technology going on that you can put an RFID chip in about anything to gain to gather information or to use the example of the fridge that orders milk when it's out of date or when it's not right anymore. So I would like to invite you to focus on the Internet of Things and how do you use your target groups to really adapt new technology to what's needed in a city environment. So maybe Marcus, you can comment on that and we'll see how it goes.
Just testing. Sinaasappelsap. Well, use that one.
That's working still, yeah, okay. Well, that's a big question. I think the essential part in that is, and I think it's something that we came across in the discussion on Wednesday, is a lot that technology doesn't really matter anymore. You know, technology is gonna get cheaper. It's already there in a lot of places where we don't even notice it anymore. So technology is not the problem. I think the issue is really to go out there and actually talk to people, to observe exactly what's needed. Do we really need that fridge that, you know, tells you when the milk is out? Or do we actually need something else that, for example, when you look at public transport, like I live in London and, you know, the tube there is just a mess. It still is. It's just way too many people there, and it's just not working as good as it should. It's overcrowded, it's expensive, and they're trying to improve it all the time, but I'm wondering if they're looking at the right, for example, information, if they're really observing it enough, because it's just too expensive to drill open the tube and just, add new lines to it, which they just did in East London, for example. So I think that's where we have to look at, so what information is already out there, or what infrastructure we can already use. There's a lot of passive data that we're already collecting, but looking at it, for example, the Oyster card in London is one example. There's some people who are started to build platforms on that, or extracting data, or producing new interfaces. And I think those kind of mediators is probably what we're going to see first. Some of them we already see, which is basically saying we're already collecting a lot of data. So the Internet of Things is it's already starting days, years, something like that. But the mediators that basically then filter and gather the information and make sense of it, I think that's what we have to develop out of really observing people, where the needs are, and combining that with the clever data that makes sense. So, examples like a clever analysis of data, for example, is that banks did a research years ago about why the electricity is spiking at a certain day of the time in the UK, and they found out that it was because people were watching TV, the soap operas, and during the break people would go put on a kettle, and then the electricity grid would spike because everyone was making a cup of tea. Those kind of things where, you just get this basic data and you don't know what behavior is actually behind it, what drives it. I think that's the essence, that's the approach we need to develop anything that makes sense, that brings that makes things better. I think that would be my point.
So it's a bit like the social media thing, to start listening first to data coming in and then starting to think about the solution. Maybe Ian, it's because you're also very busy with the economical or the business part of the Internet of Things. Are there enough commercial parties involved and trying or willing to invest in this new technology?
Well, so that's a tricky one, and I should probably backtrack a second and say that we're actually fairly new to the Internet of Things. We do a lot of research around how people are using technology, how their thought processes are changing around technology, and what kind of expectations they have for future technology. What kinds of things would be very additive to their lives, or fulfilling, gratifying, make them more comfortable, etc. In terms of the Internet of Things, I mean, I don't know that I have a clear answer for the economics behind it, but if I could sort of piggyback off of what Marcus was saying for a second, I think it's almost the wrong question at this point to go in search of business models, because we still don't totally know what the Internet of Things is. We know kind of Cisco's grand vision of it. We know the IBM Smarter Planet, kind of smart grid vision of it. But when you're talking about the Internet of Things at a very people-centric level, we really don't have any idea of how that might manifest. So attached to what Marcus was saying about really listening and observing patterns and trying to understand behavior behind the data, that's one approach that I think is very important. Obviously, you want to observe how people are flowing through space, in the sense of cities, and what kinds of things they're doing at various points in the day. How they use transit services and stuff like that, so that you can shape services around kind of their situational contexts, which of course are very fluid across the day. But the other thing is that instead of observing people or asking people, or I should say in addition to doing those things, just watch what people build. Peter Corbett from iStrategy Labs had a really, really nice presentation yesterday on his, Code for Democracy initiative. And a number of cities around the world have kind of done similar things, and I'm from Boston, and so the Boston Transit Authority basically decided one day to open their data, standardize access to the data and formats of the data, and they basically sent developers on their way to figure out how to use it. And so we got this really rich ecosystem of real-time transit apps, for example, that just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And I think everybody was cognizant of the fact that public transit in Boston really is inefficient. The schedules don't really match up to reality most of the time, and there's a problem there. But at the same time, there were no means to develop a solution to it outside of the hands of the transit authority. So that was one really prominent example where all of a sudden just freelance developers and hackers and tinkerers just had this wealth of data at their fingertips. And because they have a facility with making software, and because the app development process has become so fluid and quite a bit easier than in the past, all of a sudden you have new uses for these data that maybe I couldn't imagine, Marcus couldn't imagine, the transit people couldn't imagine. So I think obviously people want to know how to make money off of the Internet of Things, or figure out how it's going to be shaped. But I think the important thing is that we now have a wealth of data and geolocation capabilities and mapping capabilities, and all of a sudden you let people get creative and they can actually create the solutions that are missing in their lives, and then the Internet of Things actually starts to take shape in some very concrete ways.
Can you give us maybe one or two examples, maybe one very nice one and maybe one that didn't work out from the Boston area? Are there examples you want to share with us of
Sure.
people created a solution for a bigger audience for the civilians?
Yeah, so I think because of the nature of that particular app competition, which was very transit focused, you got a lot of variations on the same theme, which was basically real-time tracking of geospatial data that various trains and buses are giving off. So essentially you had a variety of things like transit optimizers. I could basically say, I'm here, I want to go to point B, and the best of the apps basically said, okay, well, you have a bus arriving at your corner at this time, you can either take that and change over here, or there's a subway car on the next block waiting for you. I mean, so there was a lot of stuff like that. We actually did a bit of research where we got a little bit sadistic actually and forced people in Boston and San Francisco to give up their cars for a week. Both cities luckily have very good transit infrastructures, and we found that everybody immediately gravitated toward apps like these because BART, the transit authority in San Francisco, has done a similar thing with its transit data. So they found that it was, very easy actually to ditch their cars and use alternate modes of transportation. The thing that a lot of people actually started talking about that would have been, I hate to say it, but kind of the killer application on top of the sort of obvious transit stuff, was tying it to local community events, for example. Okay, so I have a 15-minute wait because my train's delayed. What's actually happening in this neighborhood around me? And all of a sudden, people change their commuting habits, and they wind up in different places, and they move through space differently, and they experience a part of their environments that they've never encountered before. But if you're simply waiting on a train platform, you have absolutely no way to get out and explore, you can always walk off the train platform and explore, but sometimes if you have these margins of unused time, you just kind of want to know what's near you. And so all of a sudden people said, well, this could be a great opportunity for me to establish a greater sense of community because I'm moving through space and now there are all these options and I have no idea how to connect to them.
Marcus, if we turn it around, we're talking about using apps on iPhones and our mobile phones. If we leave them home for a week and focus on how space the space surrounding you can help you move around, not using the user moving in space, but using it the other way around. How could the Internet of Things help come up with solutions and bringing you more information about the space you're in without using your app?
Well, I think that's trying to imagine the Internet of Things without anything digital around you might be a little bit tricky.
No, they're digital. I didn't say digital, but
right.
Lose the phone.
So without the phone, yeah. Well, there's a lot of passive technology like that. If you think about camera systems and I think other sensors that are out there that can register all sort of things, lighting conditions or pressure sensors or weight, anything really. And yes, you can put those theoretically in any environment if you depending how intrusive you want to be with it. Architects playing around with some of those ideas, and especially in to passively monitor crowds or to help deal with the space, how it should be, how the flow through the space should work, and that the space can adapt itself a little bit to the people using it, or that you can create some kind of multi-purpose spaces. If you really go out there, maybe really into a bit more into nature, and you try not to be too intrusive, there's still a way of kind of tracking what you've been doing, and maybe presence and proximity can be an indicator for certain things, like for communities or like for experiences that you had, or just to create a presence of sorts. So those are all things that you can do. This example of a friend of mine, they did this remote home project also, where they had furniture that basically gave little indicators of someone else sitting on the same bench in a different place, or that you could see a bench and another one is in a different country, in a different city, but you would see if it's raining there, because it would make that kind of noise. So the artists have been playing with this for a long time, with closeness, with presence, and how you can represent yourself or other people in different spaces if you share the same interest, if you share the same community. Think about, for example, if you're Catholic, the churches are all over the world. So somehow, whenever you go into a church, you're connected with those people, and you can support that through those technologies just as well. And you can play in a very romantic way with a sort of present idea. So there will be maybe some hints towards, or some examples of what's already been going on, or what we could see in the future just as well.
And I hear a lot of examples of sort of community or artistically based services, monitoring, gaining data. You work in an advertising agency. Are you working on also commercial solutions for the brands that you work for? If we take into account that we're still focusing on Internet
yeah, we
of
have.
Things.
I think especially with space is a big thing at the moment. So trying to when we're using Facebook as an existing platform, and then we have events where people can then check in and there's something happening if they're there. So there's a digital presence there's a physical presence, and how do they interact with each other, and there's some playfulness that you can introduce there, or some benefits over the voucher system, things like that. So there's a million ideas there. There's a few we are working on just as well. There's one project we're also working on for the big McDonald's sign in Piccadilly, because there's a big screen, and we want to do something when people are actually on the square, that something with the screen happens and you can interact, or you can show some presence, or you can get something through it, some extra experience, some sort of things. Yes, there's I think advertising, they're buying more and more into those kind of technologies, those kind of possibilities.
And what are your thoughts or experiences on using this very new technology in a commercial sense, in conversion, or in getting the message over to your audience? It will, because maybe it's space reacting on your movements, it can be rather intrusive. It's like the logo projected on your jacket on a station or something. Some people don't like that. How do you, if we look to the commercial and the conversion goals?
I think what we can see a lot is that, yes, the classic approach to all advertising of just bombarding people with messages is, I think, pretty much over. It doesn't work anymore, or it works less and less. So like Ian, you were mentioning yesterday that the impact of TV commercials is just sinking continuously. So people want to be able to choose when they receive extra information, and that is becoming very important, because otherwise people are just going to be annoyed all the time, and however much money you spend on it, you're not going to get any clicks in return. So, and I think that's happening more and more, because everyone is used to, on Facebook or wherever, to have these interfaces where, oh, I want it now, and I want to send this now, I want to get some feedback on this now, I want to say something now, and people should listen to me now. And I think this nowness, and this controlled nowness that comes from the customer or the user is way more important, or is way more user-centered now, and coming from there rather than the other way around. And I think especially advertising have a lot still to learn on going those ways and accepting that basically. And that's especially the bigger the company is, the slower the process is. So you see small companies already integrating those ideas a lot and really listening to customers. And bigger companies are trying very hard as well to keep up with that.
Yeah. You could use the crowd moving in a specific area also in a sort of discount way, yeah? To create combining flash mobs and and tickets. Maybe there's some question from the audience because we've been talking a lot. Is there a question for these guys? No questions? Okay, sorry.
Well, I mean, I think that's right, and I don't know if you all share this view, but working in technology is kind of fun and exciting always because the pace of progress is so rapid. But I think it's really easy, at least for me, to get this sense that technology development just sort of happens as an end in itself, and so we're producing these really remarkable things and new ways to connect people without even sitting to take enough time to digest and think about what kinds of how we can really connect people differently and really kind of regain that sense of humanness in some very fundamental ways through the technology. So I think, especially now that the production of new technologies has become, I think, a lot more democratized, and it's not in the hands of Microsoft and Google and big name shops to develop this stuff out. I think real people are expressing themselves or expressing their real needs or solving their real needs through technology and connecting to each other in ways that are more meaningful and more kind of fundamentally human. I think, for example, the Intel model of a faster chip every 2 months out on the market, it's divorced from any sense of why we need it, what we could do with it, what it actually enables that's fundamentally different or better in our daily existence. I'm speaking in a little bit of a more philosophical way, but I think now that people are actually directly involved in the production of technology, and there's this sort of long tail of production now, I think we're getting back to a place, ideally at least, where some of that humanness and some of the thought about what it actually means to be kind of connected is actually starting to trickle through the stuff that's being produced now.
That's a great thing to, I think, end the trip because we're already here. Ian, Marcus, thanks a lot. Give him a big hand of applause, please. They will be in the area, so thanks a lot again.